Tina Hester, Jane's due process and set up here to testify against the bill. We'll show Tina Hester against the bill, not testifying. Amanda Hernandez, Spring Democrats, pro-choice, Houston, and represent herself against the bill. Okay, we'll let her make her way over here, and can we go ahead and go to the next?
We're going to show right now she didn't testify.
Okay, we'll have her against bill, not testifying until she gets over here. Joanne Hawley, self, here testifying against the bill. Holly? Good evening, Joanne.
Good evening. I do have copies for y'all.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Joanne Hawley. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I'm here to testify against these bills. I'm a constituent of Representative Eddie Rodriguez. I'm a native Texan, grew up close to poverty, and I am a survivor of incest and rape. The answer to this debate is quite simple. If you are against abortion, then don't have one. No one is trying to take away your faith, your personal belief system, or forcing you to have an abortion. I am concerned that these bills decrease my legal right to an abortion and ignore my legal right to my own personal belief system. I sincerely hope that politicians will objectively represent all voices and belief systems in their constituency. Additional abortion restrictions within this legislation contribute to the so-called adequate time crunch by decreasing access to clinics and medical abortions, which are already out of reach for those living in poverty. Let us not forget that many people seek abortions due to rape, incest, and reproductive coercion. When your older brother is the one raping you, you are very unlikely to report it, and one may not have adequate time to obtain an early-term abortion due to an abusive relationship and the shame associated with it. If I did not have access to clinics like Planned Parenthood, I would have repeated the cycle of poverty, abuse, and violence that I was raised in. If these bills pass, millions of people like me will lose access to preventative health care that these clinics provide, and the taxpayers will pick up the tab. Since I am at risk for an ectopic pregnancy, my life and reproductive health is dependent on access to drugs like RU46. If these bills are enacted, I would like to get sterilized to maintain my bodily autonomy. Please don't do this to me and people like me who have always tried to stay safe. If this administration comes after my health care rights, I'm coming after their guns. If I can't be trusted with my organs, how can anyone be trusted to a deadly weapon like a firearm? We are watching, we are voting in the next election. Thank you, everyone who supports reproductive rights and makes me feel like I am not alone in this fight against Goliath.
Thank you very much for your testimony. We have one quick question.
I just want to tell you thanks for sharing such a personal story. I know it's hard.
Thank you.
All right. Chuck Freeman, Texas Unitarian Universalist Justice.
Amanda Hernandez.
Okay. We're going to back up. We have
Amanda Hernandez.
We have Amanda Hernandez here.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
I drove from Houston. I'm against HB 60.
We need to start with your name and.
My name is Amanda Hernandez. My representative is Thompson. My district is 141 in Houston.
But you're here representing yourself?
I'm representing myself, Spring Democrats, and Pro-Choice Houston.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Let's talk about special session bills on abortion. We are pro-life. We are pro-life. I remember yelling this. We are pro-life at many anti-abortion rallies, some right here in Austin. I was in their movement for most of my life because I thought the pro-life crowd wanted all life to be cared for. I rubbed shoulders with Jim and Elizabeth Graham, where are you? in Texas Right to Life, encouraging the passage of laws to restrict and to try to eliminate abortion access. I shook hands with many Republican politicians, even our governor, at picketed clinics, raised awareness, signed petitions, because I thought outlawing abortion was all the help women needed. Then my world fell apart. I decided to start a family, and at 2.5 months gestation, in our planned pregnancy, mind you, the father left me. I went from being a well-paid medical office supervisor when this started to being unemployed and homeless. I slept in my car hungry and alone many nights. How did Texas Right to Life and these pro-life bills help me? Well, Texas Right to Life put me up in a house for one night, and that was it. That was the only help I got. Hey, Texas Right to Life and everyone else who supports this, these bills here now will do nothing to help women in need. I tell my story because the people writing these bills will never know the pain of being pregnant, alone, without resources, and without hope that tomorrow will be better. I do. Just like many women who choose abortion, the rich will always have access to safe abortion. They did when it was illegal, and they will with these restrictions. These bills are just taking the right to choose from the poor. Here's a quote for you. I don't think that just because you're opposed to abortion, that means you are pro-life. If you want a child to be born, but not fed, not educated, not housed, that's not pro-life. That is pro-birth. Here's what I know. A woman you know and love could have need of an abortion, and the right to choose should not be restricted by her income or taken from her by votes from people in power who will never know what it is like to be her. This special session should only be doing the following: helping the poorest, creating jobs, raising taxes on the wealthiest to create more income equality for all, improving education, affordable quality child care would maybe help them choose life, better maternity leave policy, making health, I'm almost done, making health care available for everyone, but nope, because that kind of special session would be very pro-life. These bills are not pro-life, they are pro-birth. 4 years ago, I learned the painful truth that the pro-life movement was only pro-life for a certain wealthy and privileged few, not pro-life for all. Please oppose these bills. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Members, any questions? Okay, and have a safe trip home.
Thank you.
Hold on. What's your last?
They're on Reverend Freeman. You called my name a moment ago. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I was wondering if the young lady who just gave that impassioned speech, if she wouldn't mind sharing her comments with us. If she needs them, she can keep them, but I'd like to have them. I thought she was very articulate, and I'd like to, a lot of things. So I'd like to see if she'd share her speech with us, if she wouldn't mind.
Yeah. If she leave a copy?
Yeah, if she'd leave us a copy. Yeah.
Okay, where are we now? What happened to that? Okay. All right. Tina Hester, James Due Process, here to speak against the bill. Good evening, Tina.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for hearing my testimony this evening. My name is Tina Hester, and I oppose HB 60. I'm testifying on behalf of myself and for James Due Process, which is a statewide organization that ensures legal representation for pregnant minors in Texas. We work with pregnant and parenting minors on Title IX issues, emancipation, as well as with minors in a judicial bypass process when they are unable to find or involve their parents. While the vast majority of our minors who call the 24/7 legal hotline are in the first trimester of their pregnancy, we occasionally receive a call from a minor who is 20 weeks into the pregnancy. These cases usually involve a minor who is an orphan or an orphan de facto in a home situation that's chaotic and dangerous, or a minor who's been bleeding through her pregnancy and did not understand that she was pregnant. We have had cases where fathers or stepfathers have impregnated our clients. In these situations, I do not believe that it is in the minor's best interest to force her to carry a pregnancy to term against her will. On the aspect of the distance, which is something I'm particularly interested, I'm a girl from Lubbock, Texas, from the Panhandle. I was born and raised there. My family were small business owners and were active in the Republican Party. My father actually ran for the state legislature out of Lubbock. If you pass this abortion legislation, you're going to be closing the clinics in Lubbock, Midland, and San Angelo. And I know it's already feels like a long night for you guys, and it was a 6-hour debate or so in the Senate. But that 6 hours is what it would take for a woman. I was going to just look at some of the distance. I got a distance chart with me. That's 6 hours would be what it would take for a woman from Representative Craddock's district from Crane to get to Dallas. From Midland, it's 5 hours, and these are just one way. From Frullo's district in Lubbock, it would take 5 hours to get to Dallas. Smithy's district, it would take 6.5 hours from Amarillo. And these are one-way trips, and if you pass this legislation, you're expecting women to take off 2 or 3 days of work, find child care, find housing. I hope that you will vote against these bills. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony, for being here tonight. Chair calls Chuck Freeman, Texas Utilitarian Universal Justice Ministry, here to speak against the bill.
Thank you for hearing my testimony. I'm Reverend Chuck Freeman. I am the Executive Director of the Texas Unitarian Universalist Justice Ministry. I'm in a Representative Gonzalez district out of Round Rock. So being a minister, being raised as a minister's son, I sniff out what we have here is a religious bill, not a bill to serve all Texans. I grew up in the style of religion that was interested primarily in controlling people, not guiding people and opening their path to God, into morality and to ethics and to integrity, but controlling people. One of the favorite targets that this style of religion has is women. I grew up as a good Southern boy, the oldest son with 5 younger sisters, and I enjoyed the privileges of being a male and being able to do whatever I wanted to the chagrin of my sisters, to rule the roost. And that's what I'm sniffing out here. As the representative presented this bill, when asked questions regarding to science, regarding to the respected opinions of the medical field, she really had no answer. Healthy religion is in a dialogue with the ancient values of the religious traditions and our evolving human knowledge through science and our own consciousness.
And Reverend, your sermon is going to have pretty quick.
That's not the first time I've gotten the Luby's call,
but
sir.
we have so many behind you. We just
Thank you for hearing my testimony.
Thank you for being here today and for testifying. Lindsay, I think I've got that right, here on behalf of herself, speaking against the bill. Is Lindsay here? EYTH. Okay, we'll show her against the bill, not testifying. Lori Duke, here representing herself, against the bill. Good afternoon, Lori.
Good afternoon. I'm Lori Duke, and I am a constituent of Eddie Rodriguez and Kurt Watson. Representative Lautenberg said every child is wanted by someone. I can tell you that's not true, sadly. I'm a wife, I'm a mother of 3, but I'm really speaking as my role as an attorney for abused and neglected children since 1995. My clients' parents have neglected them. They have usually drug and alcohol addiction, they have mental health issues, and they usually come from the CPS system where their children are placed now. And if they haven't, they usually come from very dysfunctional families. My clients, as a result, are highly traumatized. Many of them have been sexually abused by fathers, uncles, boyfriends, siblings. They've been forced, some, thankfully not that many, have been forced to perform sexual acts on each other and more often on adults. They've been physically abused. They're mad, they're angry, they're traumatized. This bill probably presumes that more babies are going to be born and they're going to be adopted. That may happen in private cases. That may happen with people with means, and that may happen with some poor families. But in the CPS system in which I work, it does not happen. It happens very, very rarely. And even if CPS gets involved with the baby, that baby is not going to be adopted until 12 to 18 months when the legal deadline runs. In the meantime, the people involved with that child, it is a CPS caseworker and casework supervisor that are overworked, underpaid, and quite frankly, probably working 60 to 80 hours a week. We have a CASA supervisor and volunteer. They get state funds. We have a judge. We have an attorney that's appointed for the mother and the fathers, usually more than one father. And we have the attorney for the children, which is me. State money pays for some of these positions. County money pays for other of those positions. I go all the way to jury trial and appeal. I've been on cases for 5 years trying to get children adopted. The stated goal is to decrease abortion.
We're coming to a close here.
Sadly, this
Yes,
bill...
My question is, I'd like to know more about the process, because I think what this bill would do, and in effect, if it were to pass, I think it would potentially put more children into the system, and I'm interested in
Why
what
don't you go ahead and ask the question.
My question is, what happens, if you would please let me know exactly what happens, and I was following your train of thought, so if you please.
Well, what ends up happening is that a referral is made at some point in the child's life, and CPS investigates. And if CPS finds abuse or neglect, that child is usually removed from the home, placed into foster care. Foster care funds generally come from the federal government. But you've got a foster agency, foster parents, therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, in addition to all the other people I was naming. So you have a huge amount of money going into a system to raise these children. And quite frankly, the older the child gets, usually the more angry they are. The more angry they are, the much less likely it is that they're going to find that adoptive home that's going to take them in, and those children are going to be raised by the system.
You mentioned the deadline for when, or at what point does the clock start that they can potentially be adopted? You said these babies can't be adopted. Was it 12 months, 15 months? What was it?
If a child is removed by CPS and the Department of Family and Protective Services gets managing conservatorship of those children, the state has 12 months to reunify the family. That can be extended for a 6-month period. So a parent can try and get their act together for depending on when the trial deadlines are, usually 10 or 11 months, and then it can be extended another 6 months. We have an 18-month drop-dead deadline, is what we call it.
How long on average, excuse me for interrupting, how long on average does it take for a CPS to get a case that's strong enough to remove a child? Because that's the point that we're talking about before this clock starts ticking.
It completely depends on the referral. Some children are born drug positive, they are taken out of the hospital. Some clients, I get affidavits and I see referrals going back 10 and 12 years. I have clients where the department has investigated, has removed those children, has returned those children 3 and 4 times. It depends on the situation, it depends on the case, it depends on the referral.
Okay. Is there any kind of evidence that shows us, on average, do people get adopted? If they're, I think what the goal of many people is, if there were a reduction in the number of abortions, that there'd be an increase in the number of adoptions, and you mentioned that. And so the question is, it sounds good in theory, it would be great if it worked well, but it seems like from your testimony that that's not a perfect system.
It is not a perfect system. Sometimes foster parents go into this, they want a baby and they want to adopt a baby, and so they will foster a child hoping to adopt that child. Well, then maybe the mom gets it together and that mom gets the child back. They're devastated. They drop out of the system. Sometimes it works. Sometimes they are able to adopt children that need good homes. But it is a roller coaster ride and no guarantees.
So I know families who, when they chose to adopt, instead of going into the domestic adoption, their concern was that the parent would come back and then claim the child and want the child back, and so they've actually gone to do international adoptions because they didn't want to have any risk whatsoever. So if we increase the number of children in the domestic adoption pool, there's no no guarantee that the people who can afford or want to adopt those children, who want those children, are going to actually adopt them domestically because of the way the laws are written. Is that correct?
I honestly can't speak to international adoptions. I have not done any of those. But
I guess my point is this, is that domestic adoptions have all where the parent has the time to come back and reclaim the child or have contact with the family.
I find that my clients who have been adopted, the older they are and the more memory they have of their biological parents, they often will find their biological parents on Facebook, Twitter, whatever. If they are adopted as babies, it is harder for the parent to come back. I'd like to think we do a good job legally of making sure that there is no legal loophole in doing that. But I believe another speaker said 13,000 children awaiting adoption. That number is only going to increase if this bill passes. And I think that the state needs to realize that the number of children in the CPS system, while not every single unwanted pregnancy, will increase.
Ms. Duke, thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Matthew?